you use tunnels?
No, I have no idea yet. Like, I've never really got samples. It's like so overwhelming. It's like,
There's so much to do.
you get such a.
Dang right.
I didn't get back till like 5 o'clock. It was fun. It was awesome. I bought records for it. Actually, I did get crashed, but nothing happened.
But nothing happened.
What did you almost write? Or what did you
I
write?
actually ran into a bean field. Well, because I couldn't see, like, the sun was in my eyes, and I couldn't tell if
Yeah,
it was like.
you heard that.
No, I did, but like I was about to pull it down, like,
You heard
to
that?
see what the curve was coming, and like I just went. It was right there. It's like, you know where Westwood is?
Yeah.
You know, like going out.
I remember the conversation
Oh,
we
yeah.
had.
Oh,
in
it's
another
great.
class where
Oh, yeah.
how it's
It was like it's about
the other guy's fault because the other guy's a terrible driver.
Oh,
Didn't we have that conversation?
Oh yeah.
I couldn't see. I knew.
See, I remember stuff like that. Mike was saying how terrible that
Oh, he's-
semi driver was because
Mike,
we
I'm
about
sorry.
ran right into it.
But there's no cars coming.
I'm sorry, Michael, but you're not a very good driver, man.
I'm a bad driver. For real.
That's not what you told us
That's not
earlier this
good.
year.
I know. I mean, I'm cautious, but I get distracted
I'm
too
not
easy.
Yeah,
By your phone?
No.
Boy. Every time I ride with you, you're sitting there
We're
picking
listening to
music.
music.
Yeah, because you're always picking music. You don't have to stay on one
So
song.
your radio Bluetooth though?
Yeah.
Why don't you Bluetooth to it? Click it on the radio.
Because it's not.
He's still gonna look at it.
I know, but there's no
I know,
one
but I
song.
don't. Different songs. So, different things.
This is chapter 2.
See, I wouldn't. Yeah. This is actually the second one in chapter 2.
Please,
I'm sorry.
I'm going.
What?
Just a lot to
Next one, we're not supposed to write that? Oh, okay.
I thought you almost crashed in new cars, not Aiden.
I did. The curve right outside of I ran straight through their bean field, bro. And their lawn.
That's not good.
I know. If you drive, you can see like the beans down, like perfect tires back.
Did you like knock on their door?
It was like 7 in the morning, no one was even there.
That was me time.
This morning?
Huh?
This morning?
Yesterday morning.
That must be the first time I ever riding four-wheeler with my cousins. And I thought it was in the right gear, so I started to try to hold it.
Yeah.
And then I hit it and I go to reverse to the corner.
Yeah, I was going about 40.
Driving is my biggest fear.
I was going like
I hate
50
driving.
too.
Because like you could be driving
I feel like
perfectly,
I was
but like other people don't know. how
right
to
when I
drive.
saw the curve, I just hit the brakes and I was like,
I'm just listening to all this. Number one, the sun was in his eyes. It was 7 in the morning.
It was like 8 in the morning. It's like here, sun not come up to about 7:35.
And you know what sucks? I have
And
no-
then I heard something else. I was going about 45, and I'm thinking about where that curve's at, and I'm thinking, okay, you had to go.
Well, I didn't think about
No,
it.
it's a really sharp curve.
It's
I know,
Yeah.
but you had to go through over like a little bridge that you probably wanted to slow down for before you get to that curve. So if you were going 45, that stretch there's probably
Tiny.
600 feet maybe.
Enough
So
for me to get to
if you
45.
hit
Well, I
the
didn't know how
bridge,
close it was.
if you hit the bridge at 45 or
That's all.
50, you
That's-
jump the
Yeah.
bridge.
I definitely didn't jump the bridge.
Then that means if you didn't jump the bridge, when you got over the bridge, you had to
I
slam
did.
down.
There's skid marks in
No,
the road.
you had to. You're hitting the wrong pedal. You had to slam down on the gas to get up to 45 before you got to that curve because there's not much distance in between.
There's enough for me to get that fast. Go look. Go out there and look if you don't believe me.
It's
Go look in the cornfield.
I believe that you went through the bean field. That part's still.
You ruined their beans.
You just don't know how.
That's
you
not
do it.
that much.
We just don't know how you managed to do it.
I don't know how I did it either. I was just going.
Were you distracted?
I couldn't see. I wasn't even on my phone.
No, you got now here switching songs. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm in Greenfield.
I didn't.
What'd you do? Just back up?
No, I drove. No, I was going through. Like I didn't stop.
Why didn't you stop when you hit the bean field? Like when did you realize?
Because I was going like 45 miles an hour. You can't go to 45 to 0. And,
You can slow down.
no, we're
You
just going
can go
through a
from
bean
0 to
field.
45.
Why can't you slow down when you're going through a green field?
Do you realize it's wet outside in the morning? I was literally like just sliding. I was not slowing down.
So you just tore up their bean field. Might as well start drifting too.
Yeah, Mike says, well, I'm here, might as well just start doing some gym class.
So you just kept turning the wheel until you got back to the road.
Yeah, I was slam on my brakes so I could get out of the bean field, and I drove away and got all the grass off my car.
Good thing that we probably live in Preble County, where some of the policemen aren't the brightest in the world.
Yeah.
Because if you left there and they come and got you, that's a felony. Leaving the scene of an accident's a felony. That's jail time.
That's prison time.
That's not just a little. And what'd you tell us about a week or so ago?
What?
What was it, about a week and a half ago?
I don't know. What was it?
Because we were talking about your jobs and you
I already
said.
turned 18. I'm more trouble.
Guess what
So
they?
you get-
I don't know.
Guess
I
what
go
they
to
do with?
jail.
Guess what they do with 18-year-olds that they wouldn't normally do with a 17-year-old for something.
Go big boy jail.
Wouldn't that
Big boy
like
prison,
damaging
big boy
crops
jail.
too, isn't that like a crime?
Do what?
Like damaging crops.
Because isn't that taking
It-
money away from them because you like?
It wasn't even. It was like.
It's not really. I mean,
I didn't damage.
you would have to pay for it.
It was just a little.
All right, it's not really a crime. All right, it's
It's like vandalism. It's not
it could be if it's, but
unless it's a cool farmer and they're just like,
if it's public, like if you came out and did something to the school,
yeah.
then you're damaging public property, then that's a crime.
So-
Private property's not really a crime, but you're still gonna get in some kind of trouble for it.
So if you like crash in Houston with or something, will you get in trouble for that? For like,
Well-
just if you crash, just like not
Well,
even, like not even.
You would.
Well, like I'm saying, like
it's-
you
It's not
swerve and
trouble.
you hit a tree or something.
It's not trouble. You would have to pay for the damages.
But if you leave, it's trouble.
Just for.
If you leave the scene of an accident, then it's big trouble. Because then they start assuming. Because you got to think about it. Most people who leave the scene of an accident, why do they leave that
They had
scene?
something in their
Yeah,
car.
something
They
bad.
had something bad in their car. They were drunk.
That
They were
was-
high.
that was
None of the above.
They were something like that.
None
So,
of the above.
so when you leave the scene of an accident, even if you were none of those things, they make sure that they charge you with something that's above that. Because otherwise, if a drunk wrecked, every single time they'd say, I'm gonna leave because I'm gonna get in less trouble if I leave. Well, they make sure that leaving the scene of the accident is more than what it would be.
My best friend wrecked her car into like a cornfield and it like flipped and she went like deep in the cornfield, like 200 feet. And they had to like plow the corn to get to her car because like she was like passed out. And the cops asked them if like the farmer, they wanted her to pay for like the crops that had to get plowed, but it wasn't her fault. It's
I also
not.
saw a bullet hole in the middle of it, or a bullet shell.
Bullet shell.
A casing, whatever it's called. It's big too.
Are crops expensive?
Yeah, what they would do with that is they would estimate how much
cents per
area you
corn.
took, and then they would look at the price of corn
Like cents,
for
it's
that
so
day.
much. It's so much cents per.
It's so much per bushel,
It was far off the road.
and see, and they would charge her for all that. So, and they would probably actually stuff like that. They usually round up. So.
Make it more expensive.
Right, so it's
because
not-
they had to plow, get their equipment out, plow it, and then they lost crops, which they lost money.
Anytime, you hit like, let's say you hit a guardrail. You bend that guardrail, they're very, very expensive.
Really?
I mean, like thousands of dollars.
Just for a guardrail?
So,
Our telephone poles are
Oh,
really
yeah,
expensive too.
telephone
You
poles,
have to pay
very
for them.
expensive.
Signs are pretty expensive too.
Very.
I seen a tractor straight knock a sign over like on the back road. side of it, and it was in front of me, and he just takes down the side, so he crushed it down, and just kept on driving. He's like, oh.
Some other things, because I know growing up, the way my house, the house that I grew up in, we had like a U driveway, and house was here, and then we had this big yard out here. And right here, there was a fire hydrant. And it's right, I mean, it was right on the edge of our driveway, because we had widened the driveway out and stuff throughout the years. And especially, you know, once it wasn't just mom and dad driving anymore, because there was 4 boys living there also. Once all of us start driving, there's like 6 cars in the driveway. So you got this U driveway. Well, with, you know, cars parked everywhere, sort of hard to get out sometimes. So one time I came home from work, and I'd worked like 14 or 15 hours that day, and I think I was going up to the pizza place because I'd ordered a pizza to get me something to eat, and then I was going to bed. So because I was just smashed, wore out, and I had this old junk truck, and I backed up. I think there was a car parked here, and I backed up over into the yard over here, and I hit the fire hydrant.
Did it bust?
And I just barely touched it. All right, I mean, I wasn't going very fast, and I just barely touched it. I got out and looked at it, and it looked fine. So I got backed out, and went up, came back, and I look out in the yard, and there's a big, about a 6-foot tall hill out in our yard. I'm like, what in the world is that? I mean, it looked like a giant molehill or something out in our yard. And what in the world? It was full of water, because these fire hydrants got a safety on them. Down here about 30 feet in the ground, there's a safety down here, so that if somebody does hit it, it breaks there. Because the top part, the part that you see sticking out of the ground, is like $10,000 or something ridiculous. They're very, very expensive.
So they get money out of that.
So they don't want to break them. Well, it cost me about $12,000 because they had to dig so far down in the ground that I said 30 feet. It said, what, 30 feet? That's ridiculous. You never dig down in that far. It's down in there far enough that it can't freeze and stuff. But it cost me $12,000 because they had to dig all the way down
You
here.
still paying that?
And all it was, they got down in there, and it's like a little, it's just like a little slip-in thing. And if somebody hits it, it lets the whole thing come out. So all they had to do was dig it all the way down, take the 2 pieces, stick them back together, and it was
How
fixed.
big were the pieces?
Like a normal underground water pipe.
Who'd you have to have come to fix it?
The town came and fixed it, but I had to pay them
Were your
money.
parents mad?
Oh yeah, they were upset.
So did the
They weren't real. I mean,
railway-
they weren't too upset because I had to pay for it. So I mean, they were mad, but they.
Did they have to do it that day, or did they?
Yeah, it had to be.
Was it at nighttime?
No, it was.
You're probably sitting there
I
like,
think
"Well,
I
I'm back to
worked.
work now."
I think I was working 3rd shift at the time. Something was I working? No, I could have been working 3rd. I don't know what it was.
Is that when you were working at the grocery store or whatever?
I don't know. I can't remember where I was working then. I had the old truck, because I remember hitting it with the old truck. So I must have been working on the farm. And I'd worked like 14 hours that day. I worked for Jesse Schaefer's uncle.
Oh yeah, you told us about that.
So I worked for him, and I was going in at like 6 in the morning sometimes. So it was like 8 o'clock at night, and I'd just gotten off. But
Make good money.
no, it was horrible money.
Really?
Did you have to like save up, or did you have to do them like right then?
No, I had to take a loan out and pay them. They wanted the money right away.
Were they rude about it?
Oh yeah.
What?
Shouldn't tell them to fire, I took us that way.
think it's still there. It's got, they put like posts next to them now so you can't hit them.
Yeah, like a little yellow.
Right.
Like the post pipe called
The concrete holes.
Right, they put those concrete poles, and some of them will have 4 of them, have like 4
Yeah.
corners so you can't get anywhere close to them.
There's one turning onto my road and it's like right at the corner, like if you turn, you can hit it.
So you gotta be careful, they're not, and that stuff's not cheap, stuff, guardrails, all that stuff, not cheap stuff.
Neither is
Our
running
neighbor
my
nicked the
car.
guardrail.
Yeah, and then that's not even worried about
I got lucky
what you
with
gotta pay
that.
to have your car fixed.
I got lucky with that.
All right, monthly budgets. Those expenditures, we had the expenditure paper, and I'm still working on mine. You know, I'm thinking about quitting doing it, because every time I add something to it, my wife's throwing a bigger and bigger fit about, see, I told you we spend way too much money. I know we spend way too much money next time.
Tell her to stop opening the door.
Does she leave the door open when the heat's on?
Yeah, we had that conversation. It doesn't work out well for me.
I'll write her a respectful letter.
All right, you do that.
She'll probably throw it away. And then he's gonna get in trouble for telling us about his personal life. his family.
Again, start to help me out. Try to keep track for the next few weeks. Try to keep track of what you actually spend money on.
Food.
All right, so write it down. Like when you get just a sheet of paper, carry it around with you. That's what I do. I got some of my stuff right here. And every time I spend something, I can try to keep track of it. We get a few months, we'll go back and we'll go back to this, and we'll try to average out how much I should spend each month to budget it. This is our expenditures paper that we talked about a couple classes ago. And then we got the monthly budget paper. And I was going to say something about on our monthly budget paper, when I put in my numbers, remember how we were like $650 short of what I actually make per month? I spend like $650 more than I actually make. Well, come to find out, our car payment's like $50 more than I thought it was. I don't know. I thought it was $210. My wife says no, it's $265. The life insurance payment's more than I thought it was. The homeowner's insurance is more than I thought it was.
One that changed
Anything less than you thought it was?
Huh?
Is there anything that's less than you thought it was?
No. The only thing I could think that maybe was groceries. Maybe we spend a little less on groceries than I thought, but
My mom told me she spends $200 a week on
some of them
groceries.
change, and you got to watch stuff like that, especially with insurance. A lot of people, if you go to a money planner, somebody who knows how to do this stuff, they'll tell you on your auto insurance and your home insurance and stuff like that to change every 4 or 5 years, to go in and change who you're going through. Because, when I first got married, I'd had my insurance through Simon Dean Insurance Company down in Eaton. I'd had it through them since I was like 16. I didn't get married till I was 26, something like that. I don't know. About 26. So I'd had it for 10, 12 years through them. And my wife had gotten a ticket like the year that we got married. So when she came onto my plan, she was considered high risk because she was like 23, 24 years old. So she was considered high risk, so we were still paying higher insurance on her. She turned 30, and I got to looking at our insurance plan, and I thought, why are you still on high risk? Because that ticket should have went off her record after like 5 years.
I think it's like 7.
Yeah, so maybe she was younger than that when she got the ticket.
She'd be like 22.
But it was I know that it was right about that time, and it should have been, I think it was 7 years. And I said, this should have been off your record a couple years ago. I mean, it was like 9 years after she got the ticket, and it was still on there. So I called the insurance company, and you gotta watch this. It's not their responsibility, it's your responsibility. I called them and I said, hey, I was looking at our insurance policy today, and shouldn't that ticket that my wife got back in 19 whatever, shouldn't that have went off her record? Yeah, that was more than 7 years ago, so it should be off her record. I said, but I'm looking at our insurance policy and it still says she's high risk. How come she's still high risk? And they got to looking, they still had it on her record. And they'd had it on her record for like 2 or 3 years
Did you
after.
get it back?
No. And that's what I asked them. I said, well, why didn't you guys take it off? Oh, we just missed it somehow. I said, okay, so you're gonna go back and retroly pay me back the money that I paid extra? Oh no, we won't ever do that.
So they can't even like add it on, like take it off?
And put it on,
What if it's-
And
you
so-
told them, they're definitely gonna.
oh yeah. And so I went, it wasn't a week or two, we actually went in and sat down and talked to the guy, and I was pretty upset, and he could tell. But I kept my cool, and I said, okay. So we walked out, and I went and found another insurance company, and about a week later, I called them, and I said, hey, we need to cancel the policy through you guys. And I said, you guys, that's ridiculous, the way you just took our money and
What'd they say?
didn't bother. I said, well, you've been with us so long, why, we really don't want you to cancel. And I said, well, you should have thought about that 2 or 3 years ago when you were supposed to take this off my wife's record and you were charging me too much for all that time.
Or give you your money back?
Right, or reimburse me for it somehow. But it's your responsibility to watch that stuff, not theirs. They're not gonna watch it. So if you see, you gotta make sure you go in there and do that. But back to this monthly manager paper. And that, again, I talked about it with my wife and trying to figure out, okay, where could we spend less money? There's not a whole lot of spots where we could. Some of the stuff, like you guys said, the electricity, start trying to keep that bill down. Hopefully that bill will go down because we just got a new furnace. Now the bad thing with that is, another bill that I didn't put on here that she reminded me of, we just got a new furnace and we're paying like $230 a month to pay that off over the next couple of years. So that's another bill. So we're not actually $600 and some dollars over. We're more like $800,000 or $900,000 over each month.
8 or 900,000.
8 or 9
I kind
up
of
to
forgot
1,000.
about all the little payments, like if you get repairs or like, my parents pay insulation, pay $100 a month just to pay it off. Like all that stuff.
So you got to be careful. I mean, that stuff. When we put in the new furnace, we thought, okay, we need this new furnace. We might as well go ahead and do it right. And so we put in a decent furnace, and then come to find out, it's going to be $230 a month. Well, that's $230 a month isn't too bad, but when you add that with your house payment, your car payment, and all this other stuff, then it starts to add up very, very quickly. I had her actually write down this stuff, but I was going to bring it in and I forgot it. What the actual monthly expenditures were for each thing. And
Where does she
looked
work
at
at?
home. She doesn't.
She's a stay-at-home mom.
That's part of the problem.
Lucky.
She just started working about a week ago. She finally got a job.
Did you make her? Has she always been a stay-at-home mom?
Not always. She's worked on and off.
Where's she work at now?
The Christmas tree shop over in Dayton.
Oh. What about when the Christmas tree shop closes?
It's open all the time. It's not an actual Christmas.
It's like, remember, like Americana stuff.
Right. It's sort of a. I don't know why it's called the Christmas tree shop. It's more like a.
It's like a novelty thing. I don't know, what-
Kinda like a flea market.
Like decorations. that's
What,
for, like,
right,
Whatever
decorations.
season it is.
What's the other store that's right next to it over there?
Oh.
Because it's basically the same thing. It's not,
It's
I don't even know why it's.
It's like a Hobby Lobby. store.
Right, it's something like that.
My grandma goes there
So
all
why
the
does she
time.
complain about money if it's your money?
It's called marriage.
Let's see, what, oh, one other thing, since I have started keeping track, my daily stops at the gas station on my way home, that's done. I think the one day when we very first started talking about this, I stopped and got a bag of chips and a pop.
You probably thought
You
about
got
it.
home that night, looked over your expenses.
And I wrote it down on there, and I think it was like 2 something. And that was the last time that that's been, what, a week and a half ago, that was the last time that I stopped and
Does your
got
wife
that,
cook
so.
I
dinner?
have stopped going
Does
to
she
pilot
fix dinner?
school and everything.
yes, some
So we
Yeah,
get
I
one
guess it's
treat so you're not
I
starving.
stopped doing good on $100.
So you don't need to get a bag of chips.
Normally she doesn't fix dinner till like 6 o'clock or something, so. And I don't eat lunch, so I'm usually pretty hungry by the time I get home. One other thing that we sort of did figure out that maybe we could cut down on, car insurance. If we get the van paid off, the van that we're still paying on right now is the only car payment we have. I think it's gonna be paid off here before too long. We get it paid off, what can we do with the insurance on it? Instead of running full coverage on it, when you have a loan, you can drop it down to
Will
liability.
you have a loan to have to get full coverage?
Yep. The bank's not gonna let you carry liability if you have a loan on the car.
Darn.
Makes sense.
Because
Feel bad for my
if you
dad.
wreck your car, and it's actually the bank's car, because you haven't paid it off yet, well, most people, if that was the case, most people are gonna say, "Psst, I ain't paying you the rest of the money, this car's wrecked, what good's it doing me?" So the bank has to have, you have to carry full coverage on it so that
How much is full coverage usually?
it'll be, for like me, it would be at least double. It's right about double what liability would be. So if I'm paying $300, I think about $300 a year on my little piece of junk car. The van, I'm probably paying about $600 a year.
Doesn't it feel like
Because-
I've used it before?
Right, if you use it at all, I mean, if you wreck or something, then they jack it up.
So if you're using your insurance, they make you pay for it.
Right, and that's sort of silly. I mean, I see both sides, because you got, the insurance company has to be able to pay off stuff that, with all the other people that they have that might wreck in a certain amount of time. But some of the insurance companies will just drop you right away. If you have a wreck, it's in their policy that if you have a wreck, we're dropping you.
Is that what insurance is for, that if you have a wreck, to cover you?
Supposedly.
Yeah, so.
Well,
You
when
can't
I
win in this
turn
world.
18, I want to buy my own car and like make payments, but I'm on my dad's insurance.
Yeah, see, some of that too,
And I think he only has liability. He doesn't have full coverage.
I think, yeah, but you can have different
Yeah.
ones. I'm trying to think now how it was with my son, my oldest son. Because we had to take him, I was thinking that the insurance company made us take him off our policy here not too long ago.
My grandparents have full coverage, and like, if I drive one of their cars, they have like my name written down at the insurance. So like, if I get pulled over or anything, I'm on their insurance. But isn't that full coverage?
Not necessarily, because most insurance policies, if, like when I was growing up, even though I owned my old junk truck, if I drove my mom and dad's car, I was still covered because I was still part of that policy. So a lot of insurances now, a lot of car insurance, like if I loan my car out to somebody for them to use, they would still be covered. So,
But it's only for a 6-month time period at a time.
yeah, I was pulling a trailer here a few months ago, and it popped off, and I was driving my brother-in-law's truck, and it hit the back of his truck and smashed the rear end of his truck, or the bed, or not the bed, the tailgate of his truck all up. Cost me about $1,200, $1,300. But his insurance, even though I was driving the truck, his insurance would have covered it.
But you didn't take it to insurance?
But
you
no, I just went ahead and paid for it because I was worried about his insurance going up when he puts a claim on it. So I didn't bother to. My insurance would have covered it also probably. I mean, I could have turned it into my insurance company, said, hey, I was driving his truck. Because the way most insurances are now, if you're driving a car, like when you go to rent a car, and you check this out because not all of them. If you go to rent a car, and they'll ask you every time, do you want the rental insurance? And like for me, I don't need the rental insurance because my insurance company has that built into my insurance plan. So if I rent a car, I'm covered. But not all insurance policies have
Do you
that.
have to get rental insurance?
If you're renting a car, no. But
You wreck it in your pants.
if you wreck it and crash their car, you have to pay for it. So, and they're gonna, take you to court and everything else to try to get their money out of it.
I think my mom, she ran into a wreck of a semi with a rental car, but her insurance covered it, so she didn't pay for it. But her insurance amount.
Yeah. I know with rentals, and it's usually not very much. I mean, used to be, I haven't rented a car for quite a while. It used to be it was like $10 or something extra. And do you want to pay for the renter's insurance? It's like $10 for a week or something.
That's a lot more than that.
So it might be.
So don't you have to like put down payment on like $500 probably?
No.
You gotta put down payment on a rental car?
On a rental car, no,
You
because
put a
you're
deposit
renting
on
it.
it though, don't you? Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No, not-
A down payment deposit.
Not usually.
It depends how long you're renting it for and where you're going with it.
For somebody like you guys, they may do something like that. For somebody my age,
You have to be like 21. to
probably
rent
not.
it.
You probably, and that's part of it, If somebody, I don't know, I don't know the policies and stuff, but I've never put it down, any kind of deposit down or anything. It's just you go in there, you pay for it, you rent it, but they do look at, you gotta give your driver's license number and all that, so they do check you out to make sure that you're not somebody who's just gonna steal their car and take off with it.
I think you have to be 24 to drive a rental car.
It might be.
24, that's kind
Because I tried to drive my mom's rental car when she had one and she wouldn't let me because it's like the policy.
Yeah, and seeing that if she lets somebody else drive it and they mess it up,
It's her fault.
it's her fault. They're not gonna look for that person. You see stuff like that on Judge Judy all the time where somebody lets somebody else drive their car
And they get a court.
and they wreck their car and then they have to end up going to court
And it's just a closed case, no matter what.
and it's one of those things where, no, you were driving it. It's your fault.
Sometimes driving doesn't make sense, like the laws. the rules.
All right, so on this, past expenditures, that was that first paper, that's what we start talking about. You got your fixed expenses, you got annual expenses, you also have monthly expenses, which I don't have on here. Fixed expenses are stuff like rent, car payment, those are something that you're gonna have to pay every month, all right? Now you have other expenses like DP&L or Vetron or whatever energy company you might have. That's also sort of a fixed expense, but it changes. All right, one month it might be $300. Next month it might only be $150, depending on it. A lot of times with this, to help you keep on a budget, DP&L, Vectron, any of those companies, they'll set up a plan where you pay the same amount every month. All right, so it's called fixed billing. they'll set that up for you and you just pay a fixed bill every month. The bad thing with having fixed billing, because we had it, I'm trying to think I think in the first house that we lived in, we had fixed billing on our DP&L bill. At the end of the year, if you're behind it, if you use more than what they thought you were going to use, you got to pay all that to them in one lump sum. And every year somehow we would end up paying a whole lot more to them at the end of the year. So we would pay like $150 every month. And then we'd get to December and our bill would be like $600. So it'd be like 4 times what it was normally. And it was because we had to pay on all the catch-up stuff. It's another thing too with homeowners insurance. When you take, if you're paying a mortgage, a lot of banks make you carry your homeowners insurance through, or they pay it for you. All right. So that and your property tax, because they don't want the county to come in and take your house because you haven't paid your taxes if they still own the house, if you're still paying it off. But a lot of those annual expenses, fixed expenses, and that was the bigger form that we had. Total monthly expenses equals monthly living expenses, monthly fixed expenses, plus monthly share of annual expenses. So we got your living expenses, food, all gas, all that stuff, fixed expenses, rent, different things along those lines, monthly share of annual expenses. So how much you pay per month for your life insurance plan, your medical insurance, your whatever it is over the whole year. Remember, that's when you divide by 12. That's with my mortgage plan that we have. Our mortgage, I think we've lived in our house 12 years maybe. Our mortgage, when we set up our mortgage, when we first moved into the house, our mortgage was $750. About 4 or 5 years ago, our mortgage was up to $1,150. I didn't take out any extra money on our house or anything. This extra $400 was for insurance and taxes. Insurance and taxes go up just about every year. Homeowners insurance and property tax goes up just about every year. And over about a 7 or 8 year period, ours had went up $400. That was a bunch of money. And so we refinanced our house, and I think our mortgage payment now is something like $975. So we got it back down to there, but it's still not anywhere close. When we first built the house, I thought, okay, I'm going to be paying $750 over the next 20 or 30 years, whatever I took the loan out for. Didn't work out that way. All right, because, So you got to really, really watch out for that, because at the end of the year, and my wife gets upset every year when this happens, at the end of the year, the bank sends us a bill, and we got to make up the money that we're behind on the insurance and the taxes at the end of the year. So there's a couple years there until I went in and talked to the people at the bank. There was a couple years there that we had to all of a sudden come up with like $800, and they wanted their money now to make up for the insurance and the taxes on the house. So you got to watch out for all that stuff, those expenditures that might change a little bit throughout the year. We talked a little last time about life insurance, if you're doing a life insurance policy, that's another thing that some life insurance companies will do. You might start off paying $12 a month, but you gotta make sure you read the entire print of the contract, because you start off paying $12 a month, you think, oh, that's not much, I can handle that for $100,000 worth of life insurance. As you get older, that $12 is probably gonna go up. So they'll say, okay, you pay $12 a month up to the age of 26. Then after that, you pay $18 a month. Then you pay $32 a month. Then you pay $50 a month. And once you get to like age 60, they might jack you way up there to $75 or $80. And if you remember last time I told you, life insurance companies, what do they want you to do with that plan about the time you get to my age?
They want you to drop out.
They want you to drop out. So they keep jacking up the price, hoping that, hey, he's going to drop out here pretty soon. We've took a bunch of his money over the last 25 years. It's almost time for him to collect on it, or actually not him to collect, but somebody else to collect when he's gone. So let's jack up his price and get him to drop out of our plan, so all that money just stays with us. That monthly management sheet that we talked about last time, I showed it to you. I'm not going to go back to it again. And I'm actually going to use that. Remember, there's some extra lines on there. I don't know if last time we didn't really have time to. Anybody think of any other expenditures that I didn't put on here that I probably should have? One of them I thought about was maybe for household expenses. For household expenses, you might put underneath household expenses something like pets. And for household expenses, something like maintenance or mechanical. And I spelled maintenance wrong. So you might put that down there, because as I've been keeping track of my stuff, and I was trying to fit it into these categories, like I bought some big eye bolts and lag screws and stuff for my house the other day, and I got thinking, I don't have that anywhere on here to build that stuff in. And that's not something that's actually going to go away. There's not, I can't just not fix the stuff that's broke at my house. You gotta have that. So maintenance, pets, especially at my house right now, pets are a sore subject, because I'd like to get rid of just about all of them.
How many dogs do you have?
2. So we got 2 dogs, and right now we got 3 cats in the house. And all of a sudden, for these cats, this is the part that's driving me nuts. We're buying these little pouches of this soft food.
Why?
That's what I don't understand. And they're like 33 cents per pouch. And I'm thinking, man, if each one of those cats eats 3 of those a day, that's $1 for each cat, so that's $3 a day. And the other thing, with 2 dogs, guess what happens to the cat food about half the time? The dogs jump in there and they eat it before anybody realizes that they're eating it. All right?
Get hard cat food.
So about $3 per cat per day buying those stupid little pouches. And as a matter of fact, as I'm keeping records, I think that my wife sort of has hid this from me, because I haven't paid a whole lot of attention. As I'm keeping records of our groceries, every time we go to the grocery, we buy like 10 more of those pouches. So we've been to the grocery a couple times since I started keeping track, and there's like 10 of those 33-cent pouches on there. I'm like, why do we need so many of these? Well, then come find out she's feeding them to them every day. Well, $3 a day times 7, that's $21 a week per cat. over a year, $21 a week. It's over $1,000. And that's not including, what else do you need for cats? Litter box and the litter. And
Buy
then,
hard cat food and put like milk or water in it, make it soft.
and then she's got hard cat food that she buys also for them.
What do they do?
And does anybody know with cats, you said milk, what should you not give cats?
No.
Milk.
It gives them worms.
It's not good for them ever. Even though every cat you ever seen on every cartoon was doing what? Drinking milk. Lapping up milk. Milk's not good for cats, which, that gives me a good idea. Maybe I'll get a bunch of milk.
But then they'll get worms.
It's an
and
egg.
you don't
Yeah, I'll have to
them
pay
fix
for that.
the worms.
That's true.
That's when you said that I was from down.
Or you can get some antifreeze.
Antifreeze.
Yeah.
All I gotta do is down in my basement, just knock over a thing of antifreeze.
Are you
and-
trying to kill them now?
No, because that'd get me in trouble.
Just say accidents
Because
happen.
nobody in my house would believe for a minute that the antifreeze got knocked over by accident if the dog was down there. Now, see, and that would be the bad thing is the dogs would see the cats
Licking it.
licking it, and they would chase the cats off and they would start licking it.
You have a problem with the dog?
I like the dogs, alright.
You got big dogs or little dogs?
Loves one of these.
So you got your little rats.
Little dog's a pug and the big dog's
I want a pug so bad. Because.
what's, it's a, I don't like the big dog very much. It's supposed to be a lot bigger than it is. Ours isn't very big.
How big is it?
See, we did have a Saint Bernard. He died.
Is it like a Great Dane or something?
It's not a Great Dane. She's white, real fluffy, real furry.
A husky?
It's a dog, something like that. It's like a,
Like an Akita?
I'll think of it here in a few minutes.
How big is she?
She's probably 80 pounds maybe.
How old
But
is she?
she's supposed to be, she's probably, she might be a year and a half old maybe.
I want a puppy. Where'd you get your pug? Is it old? Or is it?
Yeah, the pug is very old now. She's probably 12 or 13.
They're
She's,
so expensive.
yeah. The pug was my wife's Christmas present one year. I bought her, because she wanted the pug, so I bought her. I think it cost me like $700.
I don't want so bad.
See, instead of buying like a real expensive dog, I'd rather get a cheaper dog, keep it at home. You know what I mean? I really just want a blue pit. That's all I want.
See, and usually that's what I always did, but she wanted a pug, so that was her Christmas present.
And when you want a certain dog, it's always expensive.
All right, that's your assignment.